Let me ask you this. When was the last time you had a real breakthrough where you faced a lot of resistance and you got to the other side of it? You had a huge aha moment. You celebrated yourself with pride. It's probably been a while, but this year is your year of breakthrough. Imagine every single week having a massive breakthrough that literally changes your entire life. And it's not because your circumstance changed. It's because you saw something in a brand new way that created so much relief and so much peace in your life that you celebrated and you didn't need alcohol to do it. That's what I want to invite you into in 2026. And that is what the 90-day life renewal is all about. To know that you can handle it and that you're not ignoring it by numbing or hiding, that you can be scared and do it anyway. And this is the journey that we go on together. Schedule your clarity call now because this is your first big breakthrough. And I'm not joking. This one step is when people start to realize, yes, something is possible and I don't have to do it alone. And know that this is just the beginning. I cannot wait to connect with you. Welcome back to the show, Warriors of Love. It's Mary Wagstaff. If it's your first time here, you are warmly invited into our circle. And if you are returning, we have, either way, I guess, we have a very special episode today. A beautiful woman that I came across. We were in a program together and we were both working on just showing up in new ways. And she was working on her asking, and I was working on my receiving and saying yes. And so inside of a Facebook group, we made a connection through our taking action of our giving and receiving. And we had a beautiful connection. And I got to find more out about Essence, our guest for today, and the beautiful work she's doing with the feminine and her own personal healing journey. And I invited her to come onto the show because I believe she probably has much wisdom to share with you. Welcome to Wild Sobriety, Essence.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here. Let's start out with a celebration. What are you celebrating today? What feels really magical about your life?
There's two things. One, what feels really magical, back into my purpose after taking a little bit of a hiatus. So being back fully committed, and also just welcoming in a new kitten.
Oh my gosh, where is she? I need to see her.
I had to put her in a room and lock the door. I almost threw away the key. She is, we call her a menace, and she was just menacing. She's just curious and zipping and zapping everywhere. So yeah, I had to sit her out.
Yeah, she was doing her kitten thing. You had mentioned that you're stepping back into your purpose. Tell us what that is, your purpose.
My purpose really is helping women to heal shame, fear, trauma, and really letting step into your calling. That's definitely was my story. There was a lot to heal, that I could be the version of me that I knew Spirit and my higher self was calling me to be. There was much stuff in the way that I had to work through all that, healer myself. It all is the word I want to say. It all, purpose and business all got a little convoluted, and I needed to step back, acknowledge what I'm here to do, put that in the forefront, and let business happen around my purpose instead of business being in front and my purpose falling somewhere back there. I had to step back so that I could shift that dynamic.
What was the sign? I'm curious. What was the sign that felt that was something that you needed to do? Was showing up in your life that was, hey, I need to take a step back? Because I think this is important for women to hear about how you're listening.
I felt more in my head. I've always been more of an emotional, sensitive type of person. And I felt in my head, I felt very irritable. I felt tense and tired. And I'm naturally I don't want to use the word positive, but I'm very chill, but I still have this smiley personality about me. And that started fading away, and I was more bitter and agitated. And it's because I was just so focused on the business, and I could have a great client session, and then it's okay, what's next in the business type of energy.
Right.
not staying in the celebration, not staying in the fulfillment.
Something that I've been talking a lot about here and in my community is permission, giving ourselves permission to shift course and really reevaluate. And it sounds like that's been part of your whole healing journey. If you would, maybe take us back, the beginning of your healing journey, or what was happening in your life that you knew, because you had mentioned helping women release shame and work through trauma. What was happening in your life that was this call awakening to yourself that something's got to give? And sometimes I don't know if felt you were sleeping before that or you weren't aware of it, but then you really started to hear this pulling of your higher self, which in a lot of ways, I feel we always have that little bit of that whisper, but it starts to get louder. Take us back a little bit and tell us what was going on for you previous to living your purpose.
A whole bunch of hot messness. I say that I was a wild child in drinking, partying, dating all the wrong guys. And in full transparency, I live in Atlanta. I was an exotic dancer living in the underworld. Because I say the underworld because it's a whole different world in reality there. And there was a lot of drinking. That was my way of opening up. Being able to be the wild and free me was to drink. That's how I got the dancer to come out. The dancer in public. The dancer in the room happens fine, but the dancer in public, I needed to drink. And at a young age, I started drinking for the same reason, to come out, probably around 13, because I felt self-conscious. And I remember having a drink and feeling now I could leave the corner of the room and start talking to my classmates that I see every day. That's what started this pattern of knowing that alcohol opens me up. And it became a crutch for the introvert me to now be an extrovert. And being in that world and the drinking and the partying and dating all the wrong guys, it ended up getting to this place where I felt I kept experiencing the same things over and over again. I had that kind of wake up moment where I would try to get a job to get out of that world. Something would fall through about that job. I would be dating a guy thinking he was great. Then he turned out to be all the rest. And at some point it started clicking that life is repeating in different ways. But I felt I'm stuck in this Groundhog's Day. God must want me to keep cycling through this life, and I'm stuck here. And God, if this is the way my life is going to be, then I don't want any of it. That's the place that it got to because I didn't feel there was a way out. One day I kind of heard, if the same things keep happening to you, then it's something inside of you that's creating this. And I'm not going to say it came from out of nowhere because I had watched The Secret years before in the dressing room at the club. It was somebody had brought it. I saw it and we were trying to use it to make more money. It wasn't that I was oblivious to this type of world and manifestation, but I'd never really thought about it in regards to changing my life and my own personality, that kind of thing. When that came through, I trusted it. Holy crap, it's something in me that's creating this cycle to be on repeat. And then a little power came with that. Maybe I'm not stuck. And then the next download was you need to go to the self-help section. I went to Barnes & Noble and I didn't know what I was looking for, but I found a book by Dr. Phil, who I knew from Oprah, and I'm flipping through it. And if he's saying that people can heal and change, then maybe it's possible. And then that really helped open up this, I can change my life. And then things started the path began to unfold from there. I want to pause to see if there's anything you want to say or add.
No, I love this. And I think that what's beautiful is I was talking about this on this call that I hosted inside the Wild Sobriety community. And I was talking about the idea of self-help. And in psychology, we talk about the little s and they talk about the little s and the big S and the small self and the big self. But self-help really isn't, in my perspective, that you are it's something inside of me needs to change, but it's really because you're answering the call of the big self. The self help is really, and what I see the big S as is source. Source is you're connecting with source and divine mind. And this is what I'm hearing coming through for you. It's I'm going to follow the thread of this whisper. And this is what I tell women all the time that listen to this. You're here because there is a calling that you have. There's something else, and you might not know what it is, and you might not know how to get out of it, but you're here. That's one step. Then you go and you're Dr. Phil, which is great. I know him. There is the next step. Continue. I want to keep hearing more about the threads.
Then the next thread, a girl that I think I didn't really know what was next, but now that I'm in the self-help aisle and I'm on the floor at one point with all these different books, and then I'm starting to see law of attraction, manifestation stuff. And I wonder if there's any groups in person. And I got on Meetup, and then I started going to different Meetup groups, and I ended up at a group that was about developing your intuition. And then I feel I need that so I can keep being guided. And when I went there, a psychic told me that I was supposed to be a radical forgiveness coach. And I'd never heard of it. And it kind of felt a little crazy at that point because I'm not very far from have been in the underworld, and now you're saying I'm supposed to be a coach and help people heal. But I I listened, and then I went Googling radical forgiveness, and then I saw that there was a book and an author, and I ordered the book. And when I started reading the book, it said that his mission was to help people with forgiveness, and something in me, my gut was, oh, I'm on that mission with him. And then the next thing, my intuition was, if you're going to do this, then you need to do it clean. You need to coach clean. And this was before that was really a word, because that was 2013 at this point. And I understood what that meant. That meant that I need to do the work on me. Don't show up. I can be coaching other people. I need to take myself through the forgiveness work. And I didn't necessarily know what all that entailed, but as I was reading the book, I was able to see how a lot of the things that I was attracting in my life, that cycle of men and jobs ending, it was my abandonment wound from my dad not raising me. What was playing out where jobs abandoned me. I mean, closed down. One job I was at for 2 years, I went one day and there was a sign on the door that we're closed. My boss, nobody, you know what I mean? When I was reading this book, it all started to make sense that the men that were unavailable or emotionally unavailable, still, seeing their ex or their baby mama weren't available, and everything made sense, how it was a reflection of my suppressed abandonment wound. And if you would have asked me then, was I mad at my dad or anything, I would have been, no, we talk from time to time. He's cool. But when I started to dive into that wound and explore it, there was much there, much anger and rage and sadness, because he did end up having 2 other kids that he helped raise. There was resentment, and I had to let it all out and explore it all. And I worked with another radical forgiveness coach for a while, and then I ended up getting a life coach who was also really into limiting beliefs and processing emotions and that kind of thing, that I could have my own help to work through all of that. And I started doing a lot of self-love work and mirror work, looking in the mirror and saying nice and kind things, because being a dancer had kind of destroyed what happened once I came to this side of awareness. I then was looking back on the dancer me, and there was a lot of judgment. And that for a few years really created this disconnect of me looking back on her. How could you do that? How could you make that choice and that decision? And there was a lot of self-love and self-worth work that had to happen to get to the place where I could love her and be appreciative of past essence because she chose that route to get out of an abusive relationship. That was a pretty brave choice to do this instead of being in an abusive relationship and move across country away from the abuser and, come here. But it took a lot of work to get to that place to see my old self in that light. As I'm doing my own radical forgiveness work, forgiving my dad, healing my relationship with myself, at this point, it had been about 5 years since I had actually spoken to my dad. And I had got drunk. I was drunk one time and I had called him and told him how he ruined my life 5 years prior. And then we didn't talk again and he had changed his number. And I'm doing my forgiveness work. I get to a place of real completion with it. This was part of my journey. This was who my dad was meant to be in my life for my soul's journey. If we rewound the hands of time and I was back in my mom's wound, my dad would still disappear because this is supposed to be my journey. And that felt clear in my bones and my cells. And then out of the blue, my dad calls. Now, this is about 4 months of me doing radical forgiveness work. My dad calls and I want to explain everything to you.
Wow.
He explained how him and my mom met and how, they met at a party. And then before you know it, she's pregnant and he ran off to the army. And he's lived with much guilt. And he himself was an alcoholic and on drugs from all the guilt. And we were able to spend 4 years of getting to know each other before he passed away at 58 from the alcoholism. Wall that I had up where we could have a real just like friendship. And then I would say so my dad came in 4 months after me doing the deep work. And then maybe about 3 or 4 months later, I attracted my first healthy long-term relationship after healing my father wound and stepping into my self-worth. I attracted this wonderful guy. And, but there were some boundaries and things that had to be set where I could see where old me probably would have let some stuff. But now on the other side of my healing, no, we're not going to cuss at each other. We're not going to do this. Our relationship is going to be that. And I would keep setting these bars where if he couldn't rise up to it, then I was with being alone where that felt scary for me. But he kept everything that I put out there. Nope, we're not doing that. And he's like, okay. And it's been 11 years now that we've been together, each other, and being best friends.
Getting cats. Taking care of kitties. There's so much in there. Thank you for sharing all that. And I'm sorry about your father, but it sounds like there was so much completeness and closure. There was a richness to that relationship that may not have ever existed, even if, he was still alive to this day. I think that our listeners can see in this thread of that frequency changing and how when we heal, we do heal other people. I mean, or just the like energy has a way that we show up of our emotions, the frequency of concept and how it impacts everything around us. And one of the things that kind of stood out for me, because I talk about this in sobriety, where this was similar to my journey where I didn't center my change around alcohol. And in fact, I don't encourage people to center their change around alcohol because alcohol is a symptom of something else. It might be the blaring thing I feel crap every day, but there's something else underneath it. And when you were following those threads, it ended up in the intuitive meetup group, that was this is it. And then naturally you start to get more in alignment with the truth of who you are, and things start away from there because they don't make sense anymore. Tell me a little bit about that. And I love when you were talking about being able to look back at that version of you that's dancing and in that lifestyle, and you have that stark contrast because you're in this state of awareness, in that witness consciousness, but not judging her. And in fact, and I always tell people this too, we don't want to kill the past version of ourselves. We're not, that person needs to die, this one can be born, but it's more come with me into this here to help bring you into this time frame through the love, through the validation, and seeing that every single part of the step was to strengthen your vessel, was to get you to where you are now. How did your relationship to alcohol and that lifestyle, what did that look like? How did that change?
It was a decision. It definitely was a decision. When I left my friend, she had left prior and she started bartending. We both had took a bartending class, and every time I tried to get a bartending job, it would fall through. But this time she was, I think I have something for you. And I threw my dance bag away and I'm going to work at this job. And bartending, but I'm still being drunk. I'm still, over drinking and all of that. And this is still prior to the healing. It wasn't about the environment. I really did abuse alcohol. On the other side, that was the job that closed. Then when that job closed unexpectedly, that was kind of that point. And I was seeing this guy who I thought it was about to go somewhere and it didn't. Both those things happening then was kind of, I'm done. Something's got to change. I cannot keep this cycle repeating. When I decided and I told him, you know what, it's done. And I made a decision with myself. I'm not having sex with anybody or being in any type of relationship until I clear up whatever's happening inside of me. I made that decision. I started going to heal. I'm going to figure out this self-help thing. And then I came across this video on YouTube. It was Teal Swan. And I remember her. She had this question that if you loved yourself, what would you stop doing? If you loved yourself, what would you start doing? And immediately it was stop drinking and smoking cigarettes. That's what I'm going to do. I went to the gas station and got me the e-cigarette thing. And then I went and I bought this coffee cup from Dunkin' Donuts. I wasn't a big coffee drinker, but I had this knowing maybe if I drink coffee, it will take away the cravings for cigarette and for the alcohol. I bought this cup from Dunkin' Donuts where they refill it and it's cheaper. And I would go get coffee.
That was your plan, yes.
Every day, keep heating it up throughout the day when I would have those cravings because I'm not doing this anymore. And I had to stop when my friends would call, and this is when my friends would call, hey, do you want to go to the club? Or hey, do you want to go to the bar? I had to be really honest and say, I'm not strong enough to do that. I'm not. I did go one time and I ended up having, I was only supposed to have one drink. And then I ended up having multiple drinks. And then I was, nope, not doing that anymore. I learned my lesson. I'm not that person yet to where I'm strong enough. And I actually had to distance myself from my whole crew because the alcohol drinker in me, she was too strong. And I didn't have the inner resources to fight her. I knew that I was safe at home. I was never a huge at-home drinker. A little bit. I would get those little airport shot bottles from the liquor store, and I might drink a couple of those outside and smoke cigarettes because I didn't let myself smoke in the house. And by me staying home, only being with me, I'm not dating anybody. My job closed down. I had a little bit of, I was able to kind of cocoon in. I really was blessed in that way to be with me and work on me and fight my cravings by myself without a whole lot of outside trigger. And I know that that's not the case for everybody, but I want to say that didn't mean that there weren't that those cravings weren't strong. Like there was a lot of inner battle and inner fighting that happened. And also I think another trick was I didn't say that I was never going to ever drink. I'm never having a drink in my life. It was back here, but I didn't make that the forefront where now I gotta be this forever sober person. I had a feeling if I kept it in the back of my mind and I keep showing up every day that I'm not going to drink, eventually I'm going to become the person who never ever has to have a drink in her life again. And I did have drinks here and there, maybe one a year for probably about 4 or 5 years. And then 2017 End up, she got out. She broke loose at a barbecue, and I had 6 shots. And the next day, that voice was, "This is not self-love. This is not self-loving." And then that was the moment where I was actually, I don't ever have to have a drink again. And it's been a decision that I'm very clean and clear on, because I know where a lot of that came from. One, yes, my abandonment wounds, but two, not being with me, not being with being the introvert, the one that's awkward and don't know what to say. And now it's, yep, that's me. I'm not gonna drink to be a different version of me. And over the years, I had a gummy one time, and I don't not being me and all my awkwardness and weirdness. I don't want any of it. I don't want anything that's taking me away from feeling my normal everyday self.
The new year is upon us, and this means many of you will be engaging in dry January because it is the symbol of a new start. But I want you to do it differently this year. Don't just go through the motions of just not drinking, and definitely do not celebrate. Decide this right now. Do not celebrate your accomplishment of not drinking with a drink. Please don't do that. It will reinforce everything that you just learned. What I want you to do instead is set yourself up for success with the foundational framework of my free mini course, the permission protocol. That way you are actually getting the most out of your time. This is where people fail. They do not set themselves up. They go into it with the same mindset, and they use the same mindset that they were drinking with to not drink. And then at the end, they didn't really gain anything except some time just not drinking. And you're going to feel great, but you want to really start to shift your perspective. So at the end of January, you'll have an opportunity to evaluate, now what? What's next? And you're going to have a brand new perspective. You are going to have so much success. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for being here, and have the happiest new year ever. I'll talk to you soon. That's the journey to get to too. And I think what I was saying earlier about the alcohol kind of fades away. Not that there's not an intentional choices that you have to make, but it's more when you are following that thread, that voice inside of you gets louder. And especially at the beginning, it's giving yourself, again, permission to do what feels safe, to create that safe containment for you. And with full honesty, instead of having to say, I have to go out, I have to be this certain person. And then all along the way, and I feel the exact same way. Is anything that is altering. I am a coffee drinker, but besides that, feels ungrounding and that feels not safe. That feels uncomfortable. No, thank you. Earlier you had talked about developing your intuition is really the through line that I'm hearing throughout all of this. And that is, you had talked about working with a coach to uncover limiting beliefs, and then alcohol. How are we going to hear fully our voice and our intuition and that connection to that higher knowing, or how we're being guided when that's this haze over everything? It's almost like we can't. Fortunately, there is, as long as we're alive and as long as we're in this human body, and obviously there's a spectrum of use and dependency where people can really not be even hearing that at all. But I think for most people that are listening, they are in a place where they do, even if it's a whisper, they do have that whisper. And your example of continuing to follow that thread through even what you needed to do to limit the exposure to things that were going to make it harder and more challenging. But at the same time, you're still getting a different perspective. I love that. I love Teal Swan also, but asking that question, if I was a person that loved myself, what would I do? And those are the little inquiries that continue to inspire you instead of white knuckling your way through. Although there's moments of that too, but you get through to the other side of it. And all the while you're doing this healing work too. You're in your body, you're experiencing what it's to be in your body. I wanted to kind of see about fast forwarding a little bit, because I want to get to all of your magic now. And What is the act of radical forgiveness look? And I know you're kind of doing something a little bit different now, and we can talk about that too, but what is required of that and then what's the result of that? I mean, you express some of it, but on a real somatic level, what is that like?
Mm, okay. Yeah, I am doing something different, but not really because it's intertwined with who I am, radical forgiveness. And I also unfolded was me meeting the author and creator of Radical Forgiveness and us hitting it off and him hiring me. And
Amazing.
and for 5 years, getting to work at the Institute of Radical Forgiveness and be with him on workshops and weekend incentives and VIP days. I got to really see work up front after I took myself through it. I am radical, intertwined in everything that I do, even if it's not in my results statement. What radical makes forgiveness radical is that nothing wrong ever happened. That what happened
Mm.
was part of the soul's journey, part of your soul's contract of what to experience before you incarnated. So it's a very spiritual technology. And I will say it used to scare me in the beginning because I don't want people to be mad at me thinking that I'm telling nothing wrong happened on the human plane. What happened to them was wrong. But what I had to was that we don't start there. I don't start there. Even I may say that to my client that that's what makes radical forgiveness radical, but we don't start there. We are very much in something wrong happened, and we can be pissed and sad about it, and we're going to feel and move through all of those emotions. And that is how you can get to the spiritual perspective of looking back and seeing how all of everything played out. And you can almost see how life was a little game of energy. That also, forgiveness is a very felt experience. A lot of people forgive in their head. And I had a guy ask me, I did a talk, and he said, but I forgave my mom, but how do I know? And I said, you haven't. Because if you got to ask me if you've forgiven or not, you haven't, because you feel it in your body and you know it. And I also had a client once tell me that she had forgiven somebody and we didn't need to work on that. And then a couple months later, she ran into that person, and the way that how she experienced that whole situation, forgiveness didn't happen because it would have been a totally different scenario if you had that real felt experience of forgiveness and then saw that person.
That's a great way for people to know, even for other things too, paying attention to your body and
Yes.
what are the responses and what are the reactions that we have. Do you find now that it's much easier for you to move through things that would have been
Not big things. And sometimes not small things, but I do have the tools. I'm very much human, and it takes a lot to get to me. But if you've gotten to me, if the thing has gotten to me, I'm not going to I'm Mrs. Forgiveness. I shouldn't be past that. Absolutely not. No, I'm human, and I'm mad. And there's sometimes over the years I can remember being mad at my partner and my higher self being, do the radical forgiveness work. There's different tools and things, and do this. And I want to be mad for about 2 more days. But then I got to a point where I could see how being mad and being in my humanness for 2 more days actually was me suffering for 2 more days because it didn't feel good to be mad. That was a process in itself of learning how, again, I didn't say this, but seeing that forgiveness is for you. Because when you're carrying around the anger and the animosity, that is living in your body and your cells, messing up your day or your life. And that person is at the sports bar or going groceries, doing whatever they're doing, and you're in here stewing. I mean, forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about you and your experience and how you're feeling. And once I really learned, really truly understood that, I do tend to really put in the work to move through things a little quicker because I don't want to suffer and I don't want to ruminate on it.
The awareness is so stark now where you see the choice that you can hear that voice. It's so interesting too, because when you do start to clear out the energy and you become more clear seeing and tapped into your intuition, and really it's about alignment too. So anyone that's listening can hear your story that when you were clearing what wasn't in alignment with the truth of who you are, that's when things started flowing more easily to you. But once you get to that place, I can hear myself while I'm in the action. If I'm not being the mother I want to be, if I'm being a little harsh or reactive instead of responding with more grace, which is ultimately how I want to respond, I can see myself doing it. And you can't let yourself get away with it anymore. You know you have a choice. And it's the question of who is this serving? What is this serving anyone? But sometimes it does. I think our initial human emotions can help us sort through why or get to the other side of maybe not reacting in the same way and go deeper. Usually it's not the surface level thing. It's usually some way made it feel we felt insignificant or silly or not, however it made us feel about ourselves. Typically is what it is. We have enough time. I would really love to talk about the work that you're doing now. And when we had our first call, you had talked about this earlier in our conversation now about using alcohol to find that sense of freedom. And now you are feeling free in your body from having more access to your intuition. How has all of this come together to inform the work that you feel most called to do now?
It all has come together with one of the things I didn't say is, yes, I had a coach, but I also had this inner healer that would tell me what I need to bring to my coach, that also outside of my sessions would be lay down on the floor and kick and scream and have a tantrum. And I literally had a calendar of different things that I knew that I wanted to work on to heal. And I would be, okay, Wednesday at 7 p.m., cry about this. I was really tapped into my inner healer and my intuition, but I call that part of me my inner healer. And our mission is to help more women be tapped into that inner voice, that inner healer, that inner goddess, your inner marketer. Like there's so many inner voices that are there to support us when we are connected to that. Connected to our body. I do only happens really in the body, having that connection. And the majority of I'm always going to be a forgiveness coach because a lot of the reasons women don't feel safe in their body or being connected to their body is because of something that happened in the past. And then that's where my forgiveness always come in and help women clear those emotions. But in addition to that, me taking a Kundalini yoga certification, a sensual yoga certification to just have different tools and ways to move the body to clear energy. Because when I was being a radical forgiveness coach, I felt I was using way too much of my energy and intellect. It would be draining. My intuition definitely came through, but sometimes the way you have to work with people's minds when they are stuck in a story, it just was too much mind stuff happening between me and them. When I would get to listen to my intuition, that sort of close her eyes and breathe and imagine a white light coming through, and I would get the courage to say those things, and then I'd take them into their body, and then they'd be like, you know what? I mean, maybe he didn't mean it. It's a whole hour. So when I would take women into their body, or I would be, I know this might sound weird, but something in me is saying you need to get up and start shaking and screaming. And then they would have these breakthroughs. And I want to learn more about that because I feel very insecure right now. My intuition's guiding me to have them make these movements, but my mind is not letting it be because I don't have a certification. And I couldn't fight it. It kept coming back up. I surrendered and took my certifications. And now that I'm helping women do the same thing to to heal. They can be who they want to be or do what they want to do in the world. But a lot of it is done through the body and moving the energy through movement and breath versus all coaching.
I love this. And that's why I work under the title of holistic, because nothing's separate and we are divinely human. If our bodies, that's why we shut down, because we feel sensations in our bodies that we don't know what they are. We're not familiar with them. We're scared of them. The women listening to this, a lot of them are drinking. They're using alcohol to numb, to distract themselves from their body instead of feeling safe and comfortable going into the body, which is the essence of the feminine and the receptivity. And I don't know about you, but what I've found recently, very recently, is even in when I've really held myself and allowed myself to experience some of the hardest emotions I've ever experienced, there was such a deep catharsis and I want to say pleasure inside of that. And I'm not saying it's what I would go choose to do on a Friday night necessarily, but this is what happens. I'm a big advocate for ecstatic dance. And there's been a couple of really potent ecstatic dance experiences where I'm in that frequency of everyone else that's there to feel whatever shows up for them. And the last time I went and I was moving through something big, I let myself lose. I couldn't be in my dance, but I let what was coming up come out, and I laid down and I felt safe in that space. And then it was gone. And I had this whole new perspective where I could really bring that forgiveness for myself and the other in. And I fully have experienced and hear what you're saying. And I absolutely love this idea of tapping into the self healer. As a takeaway, if you were to give us one way to, because I think for women that aren't connected or we don't know how to do this work, one way to do that would be really simple to tap into that self healer, what would you suggest would be an easy entry point?
I was gonna dance was a way for me. There was at first some things because of how I used dance previously. But when I would really drop all that and let myself dance, for me, even in the mirror, that would immediately bring me into my body. And it felt in connection with nature and Divine Mother, dancing and moving my body and not caring what it looked like. It could sometimes even be shaking, but I really needed to move. But another way was me buying a deck of oracle cards, and I would pull, and then it has whatever it means there. But then I would also be listening to see what other little things that I would pick up. And then I would say the easiest was going out for a walk. That's where it started. It started with me going out for a walk, because being in the underworld, a lot of times I was too hungover to really be out and going for walks. When I moved into my spiritual space, it was going out for walks. I finally understood what people would say. They feel more closer to God out in nature. For the first time, was able to experience that. And and I would go sit and watch the ducks. And I would think, if God is taking care of the ducks and the squirrels, then maybe God is here for me too. It was something that actually opened me up, was being out in nature.
In your senses.
And not expecting it to do anything, but letting it do its thing. And it was really magical.
I think that's a beautiful invitation. And so much, even when we're walking, I will intentionally leave my phone, not listen to anything, really be in the presence of what is. And I think you're moving your body. There's so much happening, your senses, tuning into that, and let it be 5 minutes and then kind of follow that thread. And I love the idea of using oracle cards to guide what we pulled an oracle card before this call. And so what is that showing up for you? Connecting my mind and my body. What does that mean? And there's no wrong way. I wanted to ensure that we know, and we'll put everything in the show notes, but where can people find you most easily?
At theselfhealingschool.com. That is my blog that I recently started, and I love pouring and sharing there. And there's also, I turn a lot of my newsletters into podcasts or videos where I'm kind of reading it to you, because I wish people would read their blog and I didn't have to read all this.
Amazing.
Now I'm doing that. Goddess wisdom, feminine energy, healing stuff, me sharing my story. is there. That's the best place to connect with me. Yoga.priestess.
Amazing. And we'll put all the links in the show notes too. You can connect with Essence beautiful offerings. And I know she was doing some embodiment practices live on social, and they're probably still up there. I'm assuming you could go check them out too. Essence, thank you so much for joining us. I wish we had many more hours to talk, but please go connect with Essence and her work and this deepening of your journey. You have such a beautiful story to share. It's very inspiring. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.